you go ask somebody, man, post on Instagram, like, what's your viewpoint of churches and pastors? And unfortunately, it's all these people that have had these terrible moral failures, or the people on the far other end of the fringes that are just saying crazy, obnoxious things. That's become the face of the church to a world that doesn't know who Jesus is.
Grace and peace, grace and peace, grace and peace. Today we got a clip from Ruslan KD. He sat down with a mega church pastor, a guy named Daniel. I can't remember his last name, but he's a mega church pastor. And I think there's a great discussion here we're going to have. And just let me be honest, Ruslan is having the best content on YouTube as of late. And those that know, I know y'all are going to get a little angry. Y'all that know, I was rough on Ruslan for some time. But through watching his content and watching this man grow, look here, man, you got to call things for what they are. The man's doing all the right things. Yeah, you might not line up with a person with everything. I don't think you're going to line up with anybody through everything. But in whole, if you look at his content, you look at the conversations that he's having, the vision that he's had from the beginning, from the very start, he's basically, him and the Lord have made it what it is today, man. So we're going to be doing a lot of reactions to his channel and different things that he talks about. But today, him and Daniel sat down and they talked about, this clip here is about pastors and the evangelical industrial complex. I'm rough on pastors. I'm trying to be more graceful with them. My apologies to anybody who might be offended by this. But these conversations are very good to have, and we need to have them.
Yeah. We in war, ladies and gentlemen. We at war.
And people are walking away from their faith in droves, to a point that, you know, there's surveys showing that by like 2050, Christians will be a massive minority. 25% of the population will say that they're Christian at that point. And so I think it's all of these things combined that have created this really, I think, incredible opportunity for those of us that are in this world, that are in this work and, you know, have given our lives to serving the church. I think it's created an incredible opportunity for us, but it's also created some really murky waters.
Yeah.
It's going to be interesting to see how the next few generations play out.
Yeah. What are your thoughts? I mean, you've gone back and forth on this. Like, I take issue with the evangelical industrial complex.
Yeah.
This is why I'm rocking with Ruslan. Coming right in, bringing heat. He takes issue with the evangelical industrial complex, the mega churches, the mega church pastors. And here he has a mega church pastor sitting right in front of him. And the average YouTuber or people that do interviews that's on a big scale have zero pushback. They're just there to affirm the pastor and all the great things he's doing, and there's no real hard conversations.
Right, like
We've talked about this.
Take issue with like just that entire system, you know, of like come speak at my thing and I'll come speak at your thing, and there becomes this like club of guys that are kind of all on each other's boards, and then the conferences around it, and then the festivals around the conferences, and then tours and all this sort of stuff. I don't know if, when you're talking about people being unchurched, like, I don't know if that adds a net positive or a net negative to everything.
I got to agree with Ruslan right there 100%. You got these conferences with this pastor and this guy's going to come do this. And it just seems like a whole big system. And I lean Reformed, but even in Reformed theology, we see this. We see the Reformed conferences that happen, and it's the same guys. And it's a system that happens year after year. Is it positive or is it negative? That's the conversation to have.
Yeah. And again, we've talked about this where there's a lot of it that I look at and I go, yeah, a lot of this is really weird, right? Mm-hmm. Same guys speak at each other's conferences all year. We all pay a bunch of money. And most of the time it's pastors flying around and going to these things, right? That are worshiping at the altar of these dudes. And
Mr. Daniel worshiping at the altar of these dudes. I think at the end of the day, that's what it is a lot of times. Friends wanting to support friends, and then people that have idolized certain people in Christianity today, it's idol worship.
If you were to go to 8 different conferences around the country in 2023 and see the same guys, you're going to hear the same talk, right? They typically have one conference talk they go around and they do. And it's a great money-making thing for them. And I also believe that they think that they're doing some positive good. I think they're probably just trying to pay their bills and feed their kids. Now, I look at a lot of that and I go, I don't know how helpful this is. I haven't been a conference dude for a long time now. There's much more practical things that pastors can do to get training. But where you and I have a bit of a disagreement, where we've had pushback, is you would even go to a church of our scale and size and ask questions of like, hey, is this a net positive, right? And we've had those discussions, which again, I think is a healthy discussion to have. I think the part that I've always appreciated about our friendship and relationship is we just have conversations and push back. And I think that the truth is somewhere in the middle.
Right. Man, we got to have conversations. And for myself, I have to say that people that are in positions of ministry that I know, and I'm not talking on YouTube or anything like that, I'm talking about people that I know, it's hard to have any conversations because they think you're attacking when you just want to have a conversation in your point of view. I had to learn, and I'm learning now, that it has to be from the heart and with love, man. Because if I just come up in there with that cage stage reform theology mentality, it's not going to work to have the conversation that needs to be had.
I don't think that having things just stand alone as these altars you can't touch or these things you can just never speak about, I think that's a really dangerous thing that leads you into some weird places. But I look at our church, because again, if you look at us, we are a Christian industrial complex. We are a large organization with a large staff. We have over 100 staff members. You know, we bring in millions of dollars. And if somebody were to come in and microanalyze where that money goes, the bulk of that money, just like any church and nonprofit, is going to go to facilities and staffing, right? The staff that we have. And so somebody's like, well, none of the money actually goes to feeding the homeless.
Right, which was kind of my critique.
That's right, right? And taking care of the orphans and the widows. And where I always push back is that, well, what is the primary purpose of us as the ecclesia, right? As the local body? I believe our primary purpose is to be a place where the gospel is preached, right? And that's what we exist to do. Can you do that without a massive church? Sure. But where, again, I start to push back a little bit is we go, hey, we just had over the 10 Christmas services we did, 600 people, and again, we can debate the decision for Christ and where all that matters. 600 people filled out a thing saying that they made a decision to say yes for Jesus. So for me, I look at that and go, at that level of scale, that's hard to do with you and I in our homes, right?
Let me just go ahead and agree with Pastor Daniel right here on where the truth lies. You know what I mean? Because you got the mega church, and then you got the smaller church, and there's arguments on both ends. Somewhere in the middle is where the truth is.
And so I think there's a level of that where I don't think one is bad or good. I think that God can use all of the above. I think that the tough part, I think generally people will say, well, are people getting plugged in to small groups? Are people getting discipled? Is there accountability for how the funds are spent? Sure.
Right?
I'm very interested to hear how you guys feel about this, man, because you got the mega church, you got the small church. I've been involved with both, and there's pros and there's cons to both, you know, and like Pastor Daniel was saying, like, you have to weigh it, because he does these services and then 600 people confess Christ and step into relationship. But yeah, there's an argument whether, you know, conversion and all that, that's another talk, man. But the proof is in the pudding. So I'm not so much against mega church, but how are you doing mega church? And is there accountability, like Ruslan said? Where's the accountability at when you have millions of dollars coming into that church? You know what I mean? Me, myself, I like an elder-ran church. I like the Orthodox version of what church should be, where there should be elder-led, elder-ran. You know what I mean? And that's where I sit. And if there's not elders in operation, I think there's going to be error. There's going to be some heavy error. And if it's just a pastor that's at the top position, I think that could be problems with sin creeping in. Because when we're not accountable, let's not get it twisted. When we're not accountable for our actions, we will rationalize what we need to do to make it right to ourselves.
Yeah. We in war, ladies and gentlemen. We at war.